What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Curfew Boys. Before we get things started, if you like what you hear, you can follow the Curfew Boys on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. And if you want to see our beautiful faces, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Also, if you like what you hear, please leave us an honest rating. Let us know what you think. It's the only way we can make things better for you guys. And let me introduce you to my boys. We got GQ Chris in the house. And we got Statman Joe in the house with that old school classic hat. I love it.
Yeah. Nice little change up. I do want to say, Anthony, before we get into the talk, guys, remember I told you bet responsibly. The responsible thing is to listen to me on bets. So when you follow us on social media, you know who to listen to.
Let's get right into it. It's Super Bowl weekend just came to an end. So to all our NFL listeners, to all our NFL fans, it's a really, really sad day because now we're going to like that big drought of no football till September. It's like the worst feeling ever. The day after Super Bowl is, I think, one of the worst days ever for a football fan. You know, no more every Sunday. Your fantasy football leagues are done. You're betting every weekend. Your survivor pools, it's all come to an end. So, really sad day for all NFL fans. But let's get into it. What did you guys think of the game yesterday? I mean, can we ask this question? Is there a new NFL dynasty?
Yes.
Can we answer yes?
Yeah, and I think there's a quarterback that's certainly better than Tom Brady. So,
okay, so let's get into that right now. I will agree. Okay, look, I am a football fan at the end of the day. Okay, and I've always told you, Joey, I'm not like those other fans who are they're Patriots fans and they hate everybody else, like you, Rams fan, and you hate everybody else and whatever.
No, I don't hate everybody
I actually respect the sport, and I'll give respect and love to those who deserve it when the time comes. So I'm not going to stand here and say Mahomes sucks. I'm not going to stand here and say KC sucks like everybody else did during the Patriots dynasty. I'm going to come out and say that I am happy for KC and I am happy for Mahomes. I think they are the next dynasty. They've proven it. Now, if you want to talk about quarterback GOATs and all that stuff, that conversation has not started yet. You cannot have that conversation for many reasons, okay? Yes, he has 3 Super Bowls in 4 years or whatever you want to say about Mahomes. But let him get to 7 first, then we can talk about GOAT talk. Number 1. And number 2, you cannot be a GOAT without beating the GOAT. Okay.
Well, he retired, but
yeah. Doesn't matter. But if you go back in time, Brady beat Mahomes 2 times.
So is Stafford the GOAT because he beat Brady?
No, I'm not. No, because you can't. No, I'm just saying, like, if Mahomes gets to that point of getting the 7 Super Bowls, like Brady, let's say it ends even, right? They both retire at 7 rings. You can't say that, Mahomes takes over the GOAT topic because the GOAT beat the GOAT. I mean, well, the GOAT that everybody thinks it is, right?
So if he was to end at 6, not calling him the GOAT, but is it fair to say that he could be better than Brady as an actual player? Because I certainly think talent-wise he's better. I'm actually dead serious. Not the GOAT.
No, I'm willing to have this conversation. So you're saying
I think Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls with a worse team around him than Brady has for most of his time. If you look at the receivers, if you look at receivers and who he's dealing with compared to what Brady dealt with, I truly think Mahomes has carried a little more than Brady has had. That's me, and he's already won 3. He's won 3 Super Bowls with receivers were Hardman, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Rice, and Kelsey. Kelsey is like Gronk. You even that out, and then receivers. You can't compare even O-lines, running backs. I thought Brady had more with him. The fact that he can scramble and throw just as well as Brady, I think he's a little more talented. Is he better in terms of statistically? No, but as an actual quarterback, I can't see him being worse than Brady.
I'm not saying that, and I'm going to give props to Mahomes. He's a very talented quarterback. I'm not going to say he sucks like everybody else says that Brady sucks. Like, I'm going to own up to saying, Mahomes is a good quarterback. Now, we're not there yet. of saying he's better than Brady. Brady has all the stats. He hit every single record. If Mahomes hits those records and beats all those records and stats, then maybe we'll have that conversation that he's better than Brady. But right now, you cannot say that. I'm going to say he's a good quarterback, and he is catching up to Brady at a younger age. Yes, I agree. But we're not there for that talk. But
with this NFL, it might be hard for him to hit 7. I just think it's extremely difficult, and I don't think he has the offense around him to maybe be able to get the 7, but who knows? But after seeing yesterday and the team he has, like San Francisco, for me, I think their defense is on par, and San Francisco's offense is just, I think it's clear of KC, but look who won in the end. It's great. And I'm not a Mahomes or Chiefs fan. I'm a Rams fan, so I'm a complete opposite.
Look, we as an NFL fan, we got a very good game yesterday. It was a boring game at the beginning, a lot of back and forth, a very defensive gameplay. But the ending was it kept us up on our feet, kept us alive, and it's fun to see that for a big game like the Super Bowl.
There was actually something funny that was mentioned during the game by the St. Louis Blues, which we'll get into the Blues game. They mentioned on Twitter about it being halftime in the Super Bowl, and they were the only ones in Missouri who have scored a touchdown yet when they scored 7 on Montreal. So it was boring at the beginning. I thought San Francisco kind of were underwhelming. Look, people are gonna say that he might have played a good game, but I don't think Brock Purdy. I'm a Niners hater, so I can finally spill out. To me, they're like the Maple Leafs or the Bruins. Chris, do you want to see the Maple Leafs win the cup? Absolutely not. So that was me with the 49ers. So I was jumping when they lost yesterday. That's my rival because I'm an LA fan. Brock Purdy had so much time yesterday in the pocket to make better decisions. Maybe receivers were covered or the wrong plays were being called. But when you look at the difference, I thought both defenses played well. And then I found Purdy had way, way, way more time than Brady did. And Mahomes did in the pocket.
He has Brady in his head.
I'm ready to make fun of him. Then Mahomes did in the pocket. I thought Mahomes always had 2, 3, 4 guys coming after him, always close to him, the pocket collapsing. And he still did more than Purdy. I thought Purdy did well to manage the game, but he didn't bring it to that next level to make smarter decisions. I found immediately when he got pressure, nothing happened. Like it was incomplete, very short yardage. I found, and when he was in the pocket, I think he should have done more. I don't think he had a great game, and it showed the difference of a quarterback. And he has a stronger team. Receiving wise, even tight end, Kelsey's better than Kittle, but Kittle's still really good. You can't compare running backs, and you can't even compare receivers, and you probably can't even compare O-line. One of Chiefs' best players actually out for the game. He was a Pro Bowler, an All-Star, Thunley. He was out he was out. He didn't even play the Super Bowl. And I don't know. I just thought he didn't play well, and I thought San Francisco sort of underperformed. And they were trending in that direction. Against the Lions, too, they only came back because it's the Lions. They're not a complete team. Even against Green Bay, they barely squeaked it out where they should dominate Green Bay. So I thought they kind of were underwhelming, and Mahomes saw that. His eyes, lit up. He took every chance possible. And
look, Mahomes was there at the right time, like Brady always did. So I know we're boring our fans 9 minutes into this episode just talking about.
No, that's fine. It's a Super Bowl. It's once a year.
I know Chris is there. He's dying inside to talk about his Habs.
Chris, we do have to mention before we get to the Habs. I know we talk about the Super Bowl, but guys, please, when the Champions League final comes on, which is the biggest viewing sporting event in the world, I'd like to talk about it before we get into
biggest sporting event in the world. I don't.
Every year, viewing wise, yes, it has like 5 times the amount of Super Bowl viewers. I swear to God, because it's global. Champions League final has 5. I know World Cup, it's once every 4 years. That's the biggest. But if you're talking annually, Champions League final has it averages over 500 million, where the Super Bowl averages about 115, 120. I'm serious.
No, I believe you. I guess because, like you said, it's global
it's global. Just... So many people watch it. But yeah,
but the Super Bowl, you have to admit, it is one of the biggest events in sport and entertainment because everybody goes and it's a whole big thing, right?
If you try to ask anyone besides North America watching it, maybe a bit in the UK, a bit in Germany, people just don't know much about it, which is sad because it's good. It was a good halftime event. I know people kind of people say the halftime event was like the best. I personally don't think so. I think it was a little too nostalgic, so maybe it didn't feel to every viewer, but it was good nonetheless. And like Anthony said, the game was good overall. Chiefs won, and whoever took my bet, I mean, you even walk away with a bit of cash. So
No, let's just jump into quickly the halftime show, and then we'll move on to our halves unless Chris, you have something to say. But to me, the halftime show was very nostalgic. I mean, growing up in that era with Usher and his music and Ludacris, and it was just
John,
Little John and Alicia Keys. It brought me back, and I enjoy Super Bowls like halftime shows like that. Like that's what you want to see, right? Like again, talking my generation, our generation compared to the young people watching or listening to music now. But I don't know. I think a halftime show is you need to see what you saw yesterday. That nostalgic feeling, and I don't know. I think he did a really, really good show. Only negative thing I'll say about it is he didn't sing much.
yeah,
But,
and every song was like cut
it was
down
always
20
cut, and he
seconds.
was always
Yeah.
letting that lip singing thing. But that's what it
The
is.
performance was nice. And you know what? I'll end on a positive. Maybe for most people, I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing it because there's nothing new with football. No one has to mention Taylor Swift.
Until next year.
And
Yeah,
well, at least for a
let's
few months. I feel bad for her. I'm gonna support her because everybody just trashed her because she actually celebrates for Kelsey.
Look, all jokes aside about this whole Taylor talk, I guess I'll say one last thing, then we can move on. The I guess I mean, look, if you want to really talk on an honest level about Taylor, it was nothing wrong. It was a good marketing thing for the league, number one. But she did nothing wrong. She just went to support her boyfriend, and she did bring a lot of attention to a lot of other fans watching this game.
But you know what
I
viewers
find there
think,
was no
Anthony?
issue. Sorry.
You know what viewers think? She celebrates a touchdown or a win. It's like she's overdoing it. When Blake Lively's right next to her and is doing the same thing, but no one mentions Blake Lively. They only
Blake
mention Taylor
Lively.
Swift. And then you
Trust
mentioned
me,
Beyonce.
we can mention Blake
I
Lively.
was mentioning
Let's,
Blake
Yeah,
the
we
whole
can.
game.
yeah,
We certainly can. But
let's take
Blake
some time here.
Lively's going jumping up and down. She's celebrating. They're chugging a beer, and people are like, "Well, Taylor Swift's overdoing it. It's too much." But then Beyonce, they're like, she needs to act like Beyonce. Beyonce's like this in the stands, but Beyonce doesn't have any connection to the teams and is not a football fan, so she doesn't have a reaction. Where Taylor Swift. So, anyways, I actually feel bad for her because everything I hear is nothing about football, and it's all about what she does. And I know part of it is to blame her. I get it. She probably puts herself into media, but I think at least half of the problem is the media itself, which
100%. It was all
There you
media and
go.
all marketing, and it worked. As an NFL owner, let's say it worked. And give props to them. Give props to KC. Give props to Taylor. I mean, at the end of the day, we can judge all we want, but guess what? She won a Grammy. He won the Super Bowl, and they're just sitting in bed full of cash right now.
and Chris, it's eating Anthony inside, knowing that Mahomes is just a step closer to Brady's dynasty. It's eating at him. He wants to
That
talk.
was the only thing. That was the only
Honestly,
reason why I was
eating
going
him.
for San Fran.
Honestly,
Okay, Chris, go for it.
No. Okay, so this is the casual fan perspective. So you guys are obviously locked and loaded all season long, looking at stats, looking at this. I was a big fan of Drew Brees. I got family down in New Orleans or the surrounding areas, so I mean that really dropped off the map. I'm a little bit, even though they have Alvin Kamara and others that are obviously talented, dropped off the map significantly with my football watching. But as a casual fan, I have to say it was still a great viewing event. I was watching it off of an IPTV, so I had the American channels. Like no matter what, and it's funny. I want to go back to a few points that you guys make and kind of pepper it into my thinking. It is, in a certain sense, one of the ultimate viewing events. It's one of those things where you have to legitimately time your bathroom runs if you're into it, because even when you go to commercial, even when there is a break, it's just the utmost.
They're hilarious,
It's the
right?
utmost best
Yeah.
viewing experience for any sort of sporting event in North America, bar none. So that being said, I have to say it was a pretty enjoyable one. I thought, I'm not going to say her name, but I think I agree with you, Joey. That falls heavily, they don't have to turn the camera to her every single time. That's their decision to do so. And I'm not going to fault somebody for celebrating their loved ones
Exactly.
not whatsoever. There's nothing to be said there. It's just stop turning the cameras. I could only imagine you're a fan of another team and you're just tired. Well, that's on the NFL. But the last thing, and one of the things that I was actually itching to dive into from before is, the Brady versus Mahomes talk. End of the day, both of these individual guys, because I'd say Brady played on two teams. He did it for two separate teams, the Bucks and especially the Pats. But when the game came down to it, you realize in overtime, if KC they didn't convert on their third and their fourth down, especially the fourth downs, the game could have been over. And guess who had control of the ball?
Mahomes.
It was Mahomes. And if you think about Brady, and that's one thing, like for a while, I have a hard time celebrating and backing any team from the Boston and New England area. I did not like Brady for a very long time. I agree with Joey's analogy that Brady naturally his build, his speed, his athletic ability overall, even to a certain degree, his ball throwing was not that of Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes is just a naturally gifted human being. Brady, what I'll give him credit for, that guy was the ultimate competitor. When he had to zone in and be clutch, like he was very much there. Now I do see traits of Brady and that competitiveness in Mahomes. And look, MVP is the MVP, and as an outsider who didn't know much about the game, who just focused in pretty much on some of the last playoff games, everything that you guys are saying, Joey, rang true. I didn't find he had as much space. I didn't find he had it as easy. I didn't find it as much. And yet, at the end of the game, who came out in front? Kansas
Mahomes.
City, and it was due in large to Mahomes. So uh, that's the casual fan take at the very least.
Perfect.
All right, to all our listeners, we're sorry that we spent 17 minutes talking about the Super Bowl. I know you're itching right now and you're getting anxious, like anxious Anthony, just to talk about the Habs. Joe, you want to say something, or no? You want to go straight to?
Well, we'll segue into it. I was just going to say the NHL could maybe learn a thing or two when they go to the Stanley Cup final, can learn from the NFL of how to get the average, viewer, someone like Chris, but for hockey to actually watch it. I know it's more than one game and make it sort of exciting. They can learn a thing or two.
For sure. So let's get into it. We come back from the break, and maybe we can say it was the rest they needed for them to come out strong against the Capitals. Beautiful game. I was just watching that game. I'm like, okay, are we watching the Habs that we just, finished seeing the last 40 games or whatever it is? They came out strong. Slavkovsky came out strong. You guys want to get into that? Slav, baby. Him on that first line. I know we keep saying it, but it's just perfection for him.
So yeah, on that front, sorry, Joey.
No, go ahead.
I've been listening to you for 10 minutes. No. I'll say this much. I think Slavkovsky, and fingers crossed, he's arrived. He's established himself, and he ain't moving. Honestly, he's been an absolutely dominating force. It's beyond the shadow of a doubt that he's there, in my opinion. The only thing is that I will say, as much as he has arrived, right now he's practically playing as a point per game player, but this is a fragment of the season. What I want to also tell the fans is he might have a certain relapse in his points, in his production, in his play. The story of a part of a season is not the season story. So we got to let it play out. But if he could keep up this pace for the rest of the season, holy smokes, do we have a hell of a player. And arguably, he's going to be more of an impact than Caulfield, than Suzuki will all around. So, hats off. It's fun. It's exciting to see him play. I find he's getting more and more solid on his skates. He's finally shooting. Let's. I'll pass it over to Joey on that front, because I don't think there's much more of a layup than Slavkovsky. Shooting is a beautiful thing to see, and I'm beyond happy to be seeing that.
I think Chris said it. We're going to get to all three games, and starting with the Washington game, I think Slavkovsky in that line had a tremendous game. If I'm not mistaken, Suzuki had 3 points.
Yep.
And Caulfield continued his streak as well, his point streak at the time. But what that game showed me is I think Montreal is a one-line team plus some good defensemen. Some good. I mean, some did get injured, as we're going to get along to it. And then a Tombo goaltender. And that's really about it. I still think Washington had a lot of pressure. Obviously, they outshot Montreal. I'm pretty sure analytically, I don't know the exact stat. I'm pretty sure they outchanced Montreal, but Montreal still played a pretty solid, I mean, it's a road game, a pretty solid road game, and I thought they did well coming out of the break to win that game 5-2. So obviously, Slavkovsky being a star in it, same with Suzuki, well, that whole line really. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to say about that game. I think it was a typical win of Montreal. I still think over a 60-minute span, they were not. I don't know if I want to say they were not the better team, but I don't think they were the better team. I won't say they got dominated, but they had some underwhelming moments, and that's where I found Anthony. You could say what you want, but then it'll segue to our Super Bowl weekend games where I don't know. I think all the deficiencies just came out all at once, and just
No,
showed
but just to conclude, just to conclude that, I mean, I think the goals came from a well-rested team, okay, and a very good line, like you said. And yes, I'm finally seeing that this is a one-line team right now, and it's not a team that's going to help us contend or win it. That's for sure. If you look at the shots on net, I mean, Washington did dominate on that front of it. I mean, 39 shots to 26. You know, the second and third period, we only took 5 shots and 8 shots on net. The rest, and then, you know, they bombarded us. So we had a very hot goalie as well. Again, I'm not going
that early lead was key. That was
exactly the early lead is what helped us, and having a strong goalie, you know, holding his hand of everything, right? So, yeah, I just think that the way they played that game, again, just conclude well rested and taking that early lead and having a hot goalie. And then the true colors came out on Super Bowl weekend. So we can segue into the Dallas game. I'm not saying Dallas game wasn't as bad. I think it was a decent game. They kept it in. But then the St. Louis game, forget it. We just lost it all. But let's get into the Dallas game first.
Are we going around the board? So restart. The puck gets past full circle or for full triangle, in this case, back to me. Look, that game was, I think, fairly close. I thought maybe a few lapses in the defense that ended up having a goal scored on us, but it was a bigger point of discussion after the game. Even Slavkovsky spoke about it. Jake Evans taking that 4-minute penalty with 6 minutes left. That was really just.
What is it with these costly penalties?
I don't know, but that was a really bad. They came close, and they came close to tying it. They did a pretty good job coming back and fighting to finally get back in and tie it 3-3. They didn't. They were in their zone for pretty much the last 2 minutes. It was well done. I think another name. Now we mentioned Slavkovsky because I think he stood out even more in the Washington game, but the other name ended up being third start of the week. I don't think we want to really dive into the St. Louis game too much, but I think it's important from not only the Dallas but also the St. Louis game. Captain has really been stepping up. Third star of the week. I think it was 7 points in his last 4 games. He's just about to get to 1 point per game. You know, out of all of our predictions, at least let's hope one comes through. And maybe we'll have that point per game player in Suzuki. But really, he led the way for that game, and good on him.
Chris, I'm glad you brought up the 1 point I wanted to mention about the Dallas game. So the 4-minute penalty. Did you guys know? Maybe I didn't know, but apparently the rule of the high stick is judgmental of being 4 minutes. Like, he wasn't bleeding, and this is what Marty was talking about. Marty was complaining that the player from Dallas wasn't bleeding, so why would he get a 4-minute? But I looked on, I think it was X and on a rules website. They're actually it's a discretion of what they want to give for that penalty. I didn't know that. I really didn't know it was a discretion because
That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
I didn't know either.
I agreed with Marty. I was mad. Like, why are they giving him 4 minutes? He's not bleeding, and it was to their discretion. And they ended up giving 4 minutes. If you notice, he wasn't bleeding at all. Usually, you only give it when there's blood. You give a double minor. But to go back to it, that's one thing that is nothing to do with. Well, it has to do with players, but nothing to do with talent. These stupid penalties. It's this taking penalties this late in the game it's something I think Marty's got to work on with players.
And that's something we've been talking about over and over again in our podcast. I mean, the lack of discipline for this team. Let's go back to mid-season. Well, we're already mid-season, but like at the beginning of the season when we had that podcast about is Marty too soft with his players? And you see sometimes it changes. Like you have some of those games that they're very disciplined, but lately we're getting those last minute bad, stupid calls that are costing us. And especially if you're, I mean, look, I don't think we're at that point of we're going to make playoffs, but every point matters right now because we're still in the fight. I'm not saying we're out of the question here. We're still in the fight, and every point matters. Every game. Sorry?
We're hanging on by a thread.
We are, but take away these last minute penalties that could have. Look, the Dallas game, it was a very close game. Subtract that 4 minutes. That could have led us to at least getting us to overtime for that extra point or two or whatever. That game where Gallagher did that stupid penalty against the Islanders. Okay, we won that game, thank God. But imagine we didn't, losing that 3-0 lead and potentially losing a point or two for that game. So again, lack of discipline. That needs to change. And I think that's also the experience of this team. And that will come in time. But at this stage of the season, I think Marty has to step it up with his softness, if you want to say.
And should Marty pull a Kelsey? What he did to Andy Reid? Just start yelling?
Let's not get into that. That really pissed me off. I don't think that was acceptable. But
tough love. They're a lot tougher in football than they are in hockey.
Yes, but you don't go to your boss or you know what I mean? Like, it's not going back into football, but
I'm just saying, should Marty be that tougher on his players?
He should be tough, not to that extent, but he should be, find that balance of what's his name, Tortorella.
No, Torts does not have balance.
Torts is
no,
too much.
I'm saying find that balance of the softness that Marty has and the craziness that Torts have. You find that middle ground.
Find the middle.
Where you're letting your team play, but at the same time, hey, there's consequences if you play stupid. As simple as that.
I don't know if he's. I don't know if this is the right time for him to do it. He knows where the team stands. They're not really competing for everything. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's just looking at it in a different sense. And when it's time for them
we're 10 points away from wildcard spot. It's 5 wins.
I think it's out of the question this year. I think it's done. We've spoken about playoffs and potential.
Yeah,
that's out the window.
The one thing I think people don't look at when they see the standings is look how many regulation wins the Habs have.
21.
And if you sort by the standings of regulation wins, I think they're bottom 5. That's not enough in terms of, it's too close to make it. Overtime to me is a crapshoot. Whoever gets the lucky bounce, you can't lead. You can't lead that open door for teams to get points from you, or you're getting the loser point, which I've complained about for forever. So the fact that they have 21, what is it, Anthony, if you're looking at it? If you sort by regulation wins, I think Habs are either third last or bottom 5. That to me is not a playoff team. Even though we're only 10 points, they're making games close, but they're not winning it in 60, and that's what you need to do to make it.
We're at the bottom.
Yeah, so it's
but no, I don't want to have this playoff talk now. I'm just saying we're not out of the we're not out.
No.
We're still in. There's still hope. I mean, we're only in February with 32 games, 52, 62, 72, 30 games left. Literally 30 games left. There's still a lot of hockey.
For sure.
A nice winning streak will put us back on the map. Again, are we the team to contend? I don't think so. I'm finally admitting to it. But you never know, right? Anything can change. It's hockey. It's, and playing under Marty, where they fight till the end, anything could happen, right? But again, based on what we're seeing with this team, we're just a five. Like we play as a 500 team, like we said, all season long, and coming from out of that break, coming out strong and then losing back to back on Super Bowl weekend. Mind you, we don't have a good record Super Bowl weekend. I think we
No,
lose
we
pretty
never
much
play well.
every year back to back. Surprisingly, we weren't playing Jersey and Edmonton, because that's always
Yeah,
the
we
Super
always
Bowl
play those
weekend.
two teams. I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's changed this year. I will say, from speculating, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the Blues, but speculating at least the first two games, I'm liking what I see more, and this is something we've complained about a lot, is they found a pretty good amount of mix of players to run the power play. Now that Slavkovsky is improving and then Newhook's back, I like what they've been doing with the power play so far. So at least that is getting to the right direction.
Well,
Chris is ready to jump on this to comment about the power play.
Just let me finish one point to that, and then Chris, it's all yours. The floor is yours. But that you said it, Joe. Okay, and we said at the beginning of this season. I started the first episode this season. I said, I do not care about. I'm not even looking at this season as a playoff year. To me, playoffs is a bonus. Okay, all I wanted to see this season was this team improving, building that chemistry, finding the magic in the power play, finding the magic in the goaltending, that chemistry as a team, building the experience. And that's all I've been seeing. And I don't care about the losses this year. And a true Habs fan this year should not care about the losses. We should look at their gameplay, the improvements. You just said it right now, our improvement in the power play. We're finally seeing other players step up. Slavkovsky stepping up after 2 seasons where we thought he was a fucking shithole, or sorry, 2 seasons. But these are the things that I'm happy I'm seeing, and I just hope the trend continues, because I honestly don't care about playoffs. If they make playoffs, by all means, it's a bonus. It's going to be fun to watch. Habs in June, it's always the best time to watch them there. But at the end of the day, just seeing the trend that this team is going, the direction they're going, I'm just happy as a real fan. Go, Chris.
Yeah. I can't agree more. Like, I legitimately can't agree more with what you just said.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
And to see the development of players. I'm gonna get into Newhook. The most important thing to happen this year, I'm gonna repeat it just so that fans know it. It's my mantra. The most important thing this year is to get rid of the bad contracts. That's what we have to be celebrating and rooting for. We are not getting into trade talks. We are not getting into speculations. We are not getting into which players we should be getting into Montreal, but we have to be looking to get rid of the maximum amount of problematic contracts, to open up spaces for the young guns to come in and develop if they are ready to be developed at the NHL level. I'll give a perfect example. Jesse Ilonen. I think that guy could have easily, like, I'm really happy that he got his chance this year. I'm not calling he's not a superstar player or anything like that, but that's a player that I think developed significantly just because he had a spot. I think Joshua Roy, as much as I still want to see him develop down in Laval, and I still want to see him hopefully go on a playoff run down in Laval, I think that's a guy that's borderline on the verge of actually being able to make the jump. The plays, if we jump into the St. Louis game, I think there are 2 to 3 standout points. There were several injuries. The hit on Jordan Harris, that was I want to talk about that 2 seconds. Sammy Blais hitting Jordan Harris. I don't think Blais intended to injure him. I think it was a little bit reckless. Like, the player is falling, ease up. But if it amounts to a 1 or 2 game suspension, I think we have to be fair as fans. I think there was a lot more accidental injury on that play than there was intentional. Again, we had a bunch of players, or not a bunch of players, but we had some potential injuries. Even Gouli going down later in the game. I think number 2 was Newhook. I think Newhook against Dallas was a little bit more quiet, just getting his feet back under him. First time in the lineup. Newhook on that power play. It's unfortunate that they didn't capitalize on that 5-minute power play, but seriously, Newhook had some really good looks.
Well, they capitalized right at the end. Like, it just finished the power play, right?
Yeah, so because it was a 5-minute power play, the guy was not allowed back on the ice
Yeah.
until the whistle blew. So technically, it was 5-on-4, and they scored. They scored on the power play without it being on the power play, or
Power
they
play.
scored on the
Yeah.
man advantage without it being the power play. So a new hook, he brings a lot of speed, he brings a lot of movement, and a whole new dynamic to the power play. Fantastic to see him there. Um, and then the last thing, I thought it was a little bit out of all games to scratch Arbor Jacki. Why? Why against the Blues? I was really happy to see Kovacevic. It was a nice little fight at the end of the game there. He really served neighbors his lunch. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my take.
Chris, you mentioned a lot of the only positives we had that game. Really, there wasn't much. I thought. I sorry to say the negative. I thought Struble was horrible. So scratching Jacki didn't look like a good move. Not that they would take out Struble. I thought Struble had probably his worst game as a hat. But I want to ask you guys why. I mean, I know why. I'll get another perspective. Maybe I get too negative with this. Why do these games happen for Montreal? A 7-2 beating at home, and you just look like you're not there. Why do the guys? I don't think Jake Allen has been great, but the defense plays worse in front of him. What is it about these mental lapses that the Canadians have been having, and what can they do to fix this? It doesn't make sense. I can't say I watch every other team for 82 games because nobody does that. I'm sure a lot of them do, but I feel like it happens to Montreal a lot more than it should. I know they're not a great team, but even being a 500 team, it's really not great to see at home. What is it that causes these lapses that they have in game? The late penalties, the games like this where it's 7-2. You know, your defensemen are nowhere, your goaltending is nowhere. I don't know what it is with them.
So lack of the whole penalty thing is lack of discipline, like we said before. The I also think it's lack of consistency, right? We're not a consistent team, all right? And I think that comes with the lack of experience and the young players. If you notice, these 7-2 losses are all coming from a back to back or too many games too close to each other. We just had a 1 week break. They came out strong and then they got tired, with the back to back from Dallas but again, I don't watch the other teams as well. So I don't know if that's happening all across the board, which I don't think it is, but maybe it is. We don't know. We're only focused on the Montreal Canadiens. But I get what you're saying, Joe. It sucks because you're home back to back. It's quote unquote family weekend here at the Bell Center. You want to come out and show the fans, we're spending a lot of money to come watch these games and you don't show up. Now, Dallas, we were there. It was a fun game. There was a lot of back and forth. We had some chances. But again, Sunday it was as if they were just out. Now, is it tiredness? Did
They're
they get
very bad on
tired?
back-to-backs. I'll tell you that much. I think they have one win on a back-to-back all year.
But what is it? Is it, tiredness? Is it
I don't know
the
if I
young
can say
players, the lack
tiredness.
of consistency?
I'm looking at focus. I'm really looking at focus. I mean, other
Maybe
teams
they
go through
couldn't wait
back.
to watch Taylor Swift. I don't know.
Maybe they wanted to leave and watch the Super Bowl. They didn't care. But before I get to you, Chris, I'm just to respond to you, Anthony. I'm saying it's focus because these are professional athletes. You can't tell me that every back-to-back they're tired. Every team goes through it. It's impossible that you have one back-to-back win all year on the second game. I think it's one. At worst, at most, sorry, it's two. So it's something more than just being tired. Go, Chris.
I know, I completely agree. Especially given their age, they're supposed to have some of the most energy that
He's
they'll
right.
ever have in their career. So don't tell me it's fatigue. Like that just doesn't make sense. I love
Okay, I'm
Marty.
sorry,
I
Chris. Fuck.
stand by him being no, I stand by him being the coach and everything, but I sincerely and severely think that there's a lack of structure at times.
Yeah.
They have a system, they have a system. They have a style of play which will in the future allow them to score a lot of goals and everything like that, but if they don't tighten up their crap on the back end, that could be disastrous. And I know that the other thing too is there are a lot of young defensemen. There are a lot of they're going up against some veteran teams, tougher nosed teams. They don't always have that perfect structure and that's not to be excused. I thought Jake Allen let in a few weak goals.
But
Anyhow,
Chris, the
I
defense
think it's a
doesn't play
combination.
well. The defense doesn't play well in front of him. I'm still convinced by it. I don't know what it is, but the defense does not play well in front of Allen at all. And to finish off on this before we get to the wanted to talk about Riley Wright with the empty netter at the end.
Oh my God!
I think
Yeah,
Chris is right. Yeah. Before we get to that, I think it's structure. I think it's something Marty might have to develop as a coach. When you play in a back-to-back, a big thing that can help you is, yeah, you're probably a little more tired. You can't go 100% effort because you just played a game 24 hours before, but have better defensive structure. Make the game frustrating for the other team to be able to score and keep the game close. That's something he hasn't improved yet as a coach, a structure in the middle and on the back end of the ice.
But could it also be, because you keep saying that they don't play well in front of Allen. Now, not to open that can of worms, because we spoke about it so many times, and we'll have this conversation again, trade deadline, if it happens. But these rotations of 3 goalies, maybe some of these players do not want to play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just said it before. They play so well in front of Montalvo. Montalvo looks like a fucking Pachicoa sometimes, right? With having a team play the way they play in front of him. But then, you know, like you said, majority of these games, these losses are coming from Allen. Is it maybe they're just, or I don't know, maybe there's something happening in the room that we don't know about? That
But
could
they want
also
to
be it.
increase his value, so I think they're professionals, they would try. But rotating the 3 goalies, I think that's the best part you mentioned. Is it's something, Allen plays once every 2 weeks. What rhythm do you want him to get into?
yeah.
So, and then you come up against a game like St. Louis, you're randomly playing. You play literally once every couple weeks. There's just no rhythm. And I've said it from before, the 3 goalies, that thing needs to stop. It's happening less, but it needs to stop completely.
Yep. No, just on that point, that last night, it's itching me. But can we all agree that Sam Montembeault for the moment is going to be our number 1 goaltender?
Yeah, no question.
100%.
Okay, so
100%.
we're all in agreement with that. The rotation of the goalies obviously is not going to be favorable. Like I'm pointing the finger at Jake Allen, but I'm not angry at him for playing the way he's playing. And in that regard, I know as fans, I know we have to go and try to get the most for him, but considering the way he's playing and considering the fact that he's just taking up space from Montembeault to be playing a better game in the net anyways, if you want to tank, keep Jake Allen. If you don't want to tank, then maybe we're going to have to accept a lesser value in return for him, but in the end it's going to be better for us. That's another thing that people have to factor in. So, we want to win the trades, but maybe it's time to lose a trade, send him to another team. He plays better than whatever they paid for him, so be it. That's all I have to say about Allen. But you did bring up another point just earlier, Joey. The hit. So Morgan Reilly hitting Greig of Ottawa. There are so many takeaways. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm warning you in advance. This is going to be like a 1 to 3 minute monologue, closer to 3 minute monologue, probably. I've been waiting to discuss this. I've been spending an unhealthy amount of time on Twitter, on YouTube, watching videos. Just to put the fans into context, if you weren't watching that game, Ottawa playing Toronto. Ottawa's leading 4-3. Toronto has the empty net. Riley Greig takes the puck. He's on a breakaway. Morgan Reilly, who's the closest defender to him, is dragging his feet significantly if you watch the clip. And as Greig gets closer to the empty net, he takes a wind-up slap shot, a statement, a slap in the face to Toronto. As crappy as a team Ottawa is, it's a major slap in the face to Toronto. We just beat you. We just beat you in regulation. And understandably so. Like, if I'm Toronto, I get frustrated. And what happens? Lo and behold, Morgan Reilly gets frustrated. He goes over, and similar to almost like a Hextall Chelios type moment, he makes a hard left turn, goes to meet Greig on the boards, and cross-checks him to the side of the neck and arguably the side of his face. Now, when I say there are so many things to take out of that particular moment, number one is I miss rivalry in the NHL. I miss hockey being rough. I missed Tim Thomas skating down the ice to fight Carey Price, and that emotion, that what I felt in that moment was just pure magic. And I don't think the NHL has had some of those rivalries, even Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Edmonton, and Calgary. They've had little moments here and there, especially with Cashin and Kachuk. But all in all, there's a clear lack of a rivalry or set of rivalries in the NHL. I think the Battle of Ontario, Ottawa, and Toronto has been a good one for many years, and we haven't felt anything for a very long while. Another kind of like Montreal Boston. Every time these two teams played, regardless of where they are in the standings, it's always a competitive game. So just number one, I love that statement at the end of the game. I love that it caused frustration. And you know what? I'll start by saying hats off to Morgan Reilly for acting on it. Okay? Hats off to Morgan Reilly for acting on it. Where I have a problem with it, two major issues. Number one, the Sportsnet panel who are justifying a cross-check to the head of Greig is completely unacceptable. If Morgan Reilly feeling embarrassed that they lost to the Senators on a Saturday night, they're probably their biggest rival. You want to take action, by all means take action, but take actions legally. If Morgan Reilly just dropped his gloves and went in for a fight, there's no issue. You know what? Hats off to the true captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Morgan Reilly, for doing that. And I would have the utmost respect. But now you're talking about going up to a guy and your reaction is a cross-check to the face, and then nobody ends up fighting on the ice. That's an embarrassment. And then for other people, for Toronto fans and for the Toronto fans who are paid a ridiculous amount of money to be on the Sportsnet panel, for you to crap on headshots all season long, but then your boy, Morgan Reilly, does that. Again, his intention to send a message to say we don't tolerate this, perfectly fine, but do it within the parameters. There's no rule to say you can't take a slap shot in an empty net. There's no rules saying how you can go about scoring a goal and how you can celebrate however you want when you score a goal. Don't you dare go cross-checking somebody in the face. Anyways, I'm hoping it brings some rivalry back. Shame on Morgan Reilly, who's now facing he's having an in-person hearing, which is likely 5+ games. I hope they throw the book at him. I hope he has 10+ games. And you know what? I think it's about time that fighting comes back and has a more pronounced spot in our sport.
See, but the problem is,
but that's it.
No, but the problem is, Chris, and I fully agree with your statement, but with everything you just said, but what the problem is here, what he did, okay? Like if you would have, like you said, that slap shot happened, there's frustration, there's embarrassment that you lost to the Senators, you go and fight him or drop the gloves and cause this whole big thing because of that rivalry. Because we used to see that back in the day. It was so fun to watch, right? Not condoning fighting, but I'm just saying, like, what I'm trying to say is that because of what he did, now the perception comes across that they don't want to that the league can come out and say, this is not why we don't want fighting. This is why we don't want this. This is why, because of safety reasons. Because he crossed, when, like, let's say let's say you're fighting with someone, verbally between, let's say me and Joe, we're fighting, right? I'm in the right, Joe is in the wrong in this argument that we're having. But then my stupidness comes and I just stab him. I don't know, something stupid like that. No, I don't. I'm trying to come up. No, I'm trying to
severe act of violence right there.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
My point I'm trying to make is that even though that fight I was in the right, my action at the end just threw away. What's the word I'm trying to look for here? I lost my train of thought. But like, it just goes out the window. Right. And what I just did just is the spotlight of that whole scenario. So it doesn't matter if Anthony was right and Joey was wrong. At the end of the day, I'm wrong now because of the action I did. And this is what happened in this situation. Him going and hitting him in the head and with the stick or whatever. That's a dangerous act. And it's now the spotlight to the league. And now they can come and say, hey, by the way, this is why we removed fighting. This is why we're putting more discipline to this. This is why there's no more rivalry, because of these consequences. That's if you would have just done it right, then you can come and say your statement at the beginning, Chris, was saying we want the rivalry back. But he just took that away from us for doing something so stupid. If I guess
Chris, beyond
I came across
right, and beyond safety reasons, it's not a good example to bring back fighting. It's not. It's a bad example.
No.
Something
But
dangerous happened. You want to bring back rivalry, but that's not the way to bring it. You have to have scrums at the end between two guys wanting to fight. Like you have to have it in that way, a bit of roughness. But this was crossing the line. This is a guy doing a complete 180, going the other way and cross-checking him to the side of the neck and the head. That is not what you want. That's not what you want to see in hockey. And that's not a good argument case to bring back fighting.
That's what I'm trying. That's my point.
But I hear you both. I understand where you're getting at. What I'm having difficulty.
That's it. His credibility. He lost his credibility for using that argument of we're bringing back the rivalry back. His actions, his credibility is out the window now. You cannot come now and say, well, we want rivalry back. Yes, we do. But he just did it in a way where, hey, guess what? The league says fuck off. No.
It's the wrong way to set the example, Chris. It really is.
I completely agree. And my frustration is that back in the day, and I'll use another example. What's his name? Wallman from Detroit, who does the stupid gritty celebration, pisses off everybody that he plays against. You know what would have happened the next game? He would receive a very hard check. Guys might be provoking him to fight. And fighting too. I have to say, the reason why I say bring back more fighting is because if you notice, when they get it out of their systems, when these boys get it out of their systems and they go and they fight, bare fists, one against one, it brings the emotion back down. It settles everything back down. When you let the animosity just build and build and build and nobody's dropping the gloves, you want to know what ends up happening? You end up having cheap shots. You end up having headshots. Okay. So that's why I'm saying I'd rather there be fighting, legal fighting, rather than having this buildup that ends up spilling over. Don Cherry used to say this growing up all the time.
I would tend to say yes, but I think the league obviously is trying to reduce player injuries. And I think statistically, Statman Joe, I'm pretty sure there were more concussions. When you saying back in the day, there are more concussions and injuries. Hello?
Yeah, you're here. You're still there.
Your video again. It happens once a podcast. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's more injuries and concussions have happened way in the day, and they've studied this on finding ways to reduce it. So again, not a great example of what is going on. It really isn't. So Chris, they're really trying to diminish it, and I think Riley just said another bad example of why they will try to stay away from fighting and I guess too much of these cheap shots.
But okay, so I'm gonna I don't know if Chris you have anything more to say, but I'm gonna conclude it where I'm seeing both sides. Okay, Chris, I get your side, and I like your side of things because I miss the rivalry. I miss that fun. Like back in the day, we used to have like a lot of debates on social media within fans. It was just so fun. Like after a game, we would go on Facebook and start arguing about to the Bruins fans and the Toronto fans, and it was a lot of back and forth. That's not there anymore. And I'm not talking about social media. I'm just talking about that rivalry. Like I was at a wedding this weekend, and one of my cousins is a Boston Bruins fan, and I haven't seen him in years. But maybe 10 years ago when I saw him, when we saw each other, we had this whole big debate, and we were bugging each other about the Habs versus the Bruins and whatever. But then this weekend, when we saw each other, it was like, haha, you're Bruins, or haha, you're Habs. It was just very monotone talk about it. And just because the rivalry is not there anymore, it's not fun anymore. It was back then, not anymore. So I get where Joey is talking because they were trying to reduce player injury, for the money, right? Because health comes with these star players staying active and healthy, where it brings more money to the game, right? Whereas I strongly believe the cheap shots are coming from Joey's coming back. I believe so, Joey. I was just concluding what you were saying. I agree with you with the stats wise. they're trying to reduce player injuries, so that's why they're removing the fighting and the enforcers and everything and all that, because more injuries that come into play, less money for the league. Because if an important player or a star player gets injured, well, guess what? They lose money, right? So I get that side of things, but I strongly believe, if you want to look at the stats, Joe, I don't know if I'm making up stats here, but I think I'm close to right, is these cheap shots are coming more and more these days because of the lack of enforcement and the lack of fighting and all that stuff, because these players are able to do this because they know they won't get an enforcer coming after them the day after.
That's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say.
And
I don't know. It's hard to calculate for cheap shots.
I'll give you, okay, so then I'll meet you halfway. I think the day of the enforcer, Ryan Reeves, to me, is a dinosaur. He shouldn't be in this league. He should not be. There should not be. Remember when we had George Laraque, when remember Toronto had Colton Orr, Kyle McLaren. They had a goon squad. They literally had a goon squad. That is gone. I never want to see that in the game, because that becomes dangerous. You have literal killers against talented players, and that's just a recipe for disaster. But when you have a guy like Arbor Jacki, I'm gonna end with this. Arbor Jacki, when he was out of the lineup and we're playing the Buffalo Sabres, we played Buffalo Sabres and I think it was the New York Islanders. Those two teams were taking runs at our guys. Arbor Jacki is just in the lineup. He's not even fighting, but he's there and he could potentially serve a harsh correction to somebody. In the spur of the moment, hockey's a fast game.
Players, Chris.
Pardon me?
Hard to find those players like Jacki.
It's hard to find those players, but like when Tom Wilson drops the gloves, when Kovacevic, let's take the example of the most recent game, Kovacevic against Neighbors in the last game against the Blues, the game just got a little bit out of hand. There were some hard hits. There was a lot of emotion. And guess what? That fight happened. Not a scrum, not even a scrum for the rest of the game. It just sets everything down, and I don't mind. I think I'm actually, in a certain sense, happy that there's a response in fighting.
I think that's more the 7-2 aspect. Like, what are you going to fight for? Look, if you want a little bit back rivalry, and I think Anthony would agree with this because he's been very advocate. Players are playing more for money than passion now, right? That's part of it too. Emotionally, they don't always play for the love of the sport. If you play for the love of the sport, trust me, there will be rivalry, and that emotion, you'll see that will transcend it, and it will go to fans as well. You'll see fans get that same emotion. They will have those feelings that the players are feeling if they're that passionate about the sport and they care mostly about winning. But to be honest, it's changing. Most sports are. I think it's more. It's getting to be more of where, okay, who's going to pay me the most, and yeah, I'll just do my thing and play hockey. That's like Montreal-Boston rivalries.
Finally, I agree with Joey.
We don't have the well, I know there was the Chara Pacioretty, but we don't have those players. There's a few left. That's not all of them, but you don't have where both teams just absolutely hate each other.
Remember Dawson days where, after a Boston Habs game, or we used to like have these, long debates on Facebook on a post. Everybody, remember Nando arguing, and just because it was so much, passion and rivalry to watching games. Like I was telling when you got logged off, I had a wedding this weekend. I saw a cousin of mine who's a big Bruins fan, and the last time I saw him was maybe 10, 11 years ago. And that's when the rivalry was so high. And when we saw each other, we used to bug each other and really have these crazy debates about Krejci and all these guys, right? When I saw him this weekend, it was like, oh, how's your Bruins? Or how's your Habs fans? Oh, they suck. Okay, cool. And then the conversation just died because, again, the passion is not there anymore. Like, I'm finally saying I hate the Bruins, but I respect them. I never said that before. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not there anymore. I think the passion just died, and it's a mix. I think it's a mix of, the enforcers gone and the fighting less and less, but also a big key thing is the passion of the game. Players playing more for the money than the love of the sport. As simple as that.
Chris, I would focus my energy on getting that back rather than the fighting. If you want real rivalry, I think that's what needs to come back more.
What guys, what dragged the players into making these post-game comments that inspired this, fueled just the anger and the interest. I remember, like, it was usually a hit. It was usually a fight. It wasn't Riley Greig like racing up the ice to shoot it into an empty net. It's sometimes at the end of the game. Okay, the only thing skill wise that they could do is one of the teams is running the other out of the arena with a high score, 5-0 or something like that. They get a power play at the end of the game and you put your first unit on. But otherwise, most of the rivalry came from intense emotion, and the most intense emotion came from high physical play. And look at Boston. There's an argument to be made, especially since Chara is gone. There's no physical element. First they lost Lucic, then they lost Chara, then they lost guys like McQuaid, Boychuk, all these guys who used to bring up when you beat the shit out of Spacek. I'm sorry to say, but when you're beating the shit out of Spacek and Hammerlake and Tom Pyatt, and you're feeling humiliated, trust me, the first thing that I wanted to do is pick up my phone, find the nearest Bruins fan, and fight. Literally, it's horrible to say that, but that's what inspired the biggest reactions.
They changed that.
Yeah, hockey is now skill. Hockey is now a much higher skill level. But I love, and that's why I love Jack Eye. I genuinely believe it's a question of time. We're going to be playing the Bruins. We're going to be playing the Leafs. We're going to be playing the Senators. And, Brady Tkachuk fights Jack Eye. Jack Eye throws a hit on a Bruins player. Something that's going to ignite the fan base. And I'm just saying the probability is it's going to be something physical, like a fight or like a hit.
I agree. All right. I think we've come to an end of this episode. Any last words, Joey?
Nah, I already said what I had to say. Just I won the bet, and I'm good with it.
Chris, any last words?
I'm hoping we could go fetch a first-round pick for Savard somehow this year. I don't want to lose him, but I think there's a lot of rumbling. There's a lot of defensemen getting injured all at the same time. So I'm just saying to fans, last little bonbon, a little
less than a month away from trade deadline. We'll see what happens.
Should start calling him Hopeful Chris.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, ladies and gents, thanks for tuning into this amazing episode. We got Statman Joe in the house. We got GQ Chris. Fireman Sam couldn't make it. Chipman AJ couldn't make it. And Balbuster Zook wasn't here. But they're here in spirit, and they'll be here probably on the next episode. So, guys, if you love what you hear, if you like our content, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. You can subscribe and like our channel on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. If you like what you hear or don't like what you hear, please leave us an honest rating and comment. It's the only way it'll make us better so we can give you better content. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye now.
Bye now.
Good night.